Candidate there in Chicago. They are interviewing a lot of people, but the fact that he was able to get in front of them and be there in person, I think you have to stamp him as a legitimate candidate for the job. We'll keep an eye on that. Still in its early stages is the Bears coaching search. Not as early as the Cowboys. I'm sorry, we got the Raiders. The Raiders have been talking to Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. He's high on their list of candidates from what I've been told. Tom Brady, you see here, he's a minority owner in the Raiders. He's been involved in the interview process. He is said to be a big fan of Ben Johnson and trying to push hard to see if they can make that hire happen. They're also looking for a general manager in Las Vegas, but keep an eye on Ben Johnson if you're wondering where he may end up. The Raiders, a legitimate possibility. And then there is the Dallas Cowboys. We know this is Deion Sanders. Jerry Jones talked to Deion Sanders earlier this week about possibly coaching the Cowboys. Where that ends up is really anybody's guess at this point. They are interviewing Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator, virtually today. They have an interview set up this weekend with former Jets head coach Robert Saleh. Leslie Frazier is on their list. Liam Cohen is on their list. But Greeny, I know you want to talk about this guy, Deion Sanders, who is apparently on the list as far as Jerry Jones is concerned, and we'll see where that ends up landing.
I want to hear Stephen A. talk about it. Yesterday, Stephen A., for those of you who missed it, opened First Take with a message for Jerry Jones.
Howdy! How do you do? Yes, I'm in someplace other than Dallas, Texas, but it's on a lot of people's minds, because I heard my boy Prime Time is snowmobiling in a mountain. Let me tell you something, baby. It don't matter whether you got on a cowboy hat, whether you're snowboarding, or whatever the case may be. When Prime Time is making news and it's associated with the Dallas Cowboys, you know what you got to say to yourself? Come on, Jerry. Get it together. The playoffs are going on without you. Come on, Jerry. You know you need a new man in that building. Get it together. Come on, Jerry. Do what the people are clamoring for you to do, because when you do that, you can end up someplace like this, even with a cowboy hat on. You hear?
Okay, Stephen A., performance arts extraordinaire. So there's so many pieces to this. And the most interesting one of it, and Mike Tannenbaum, all kidding aside, I mean, anyone who's paying attention is aware you're assisting the Jets with their head coaching search. At the end of the day, these things come down to one person making a decision, right? So it's not about whether we think it makes sense, all that kind of stuff. It's going to come down to Jerry Jones deciding, does he like the idea or not?
It's not about whether anyone else in the Dallas Cowboys facility thinks it makes sense. It's up to Jerry Jones. Look, I continue to think this is not the likely outcome, right? Like a lot has to happen. Deion at Colorado, you know, he's got some roots down there and has done well. But the fact that they've talked is not insignificant. It is Jerry that's going to make this decision. He could theoretically sell Deion on this opportunity and get him out of Colorado. So the thing people have to understand is if you go back a week and you ask Jerry Jones who the coach of the Cowboys is going to be next year, he would have said Mike McCarthy. Like this, they thought they would get a deal done with McCarthy. They didn't. So their search couldn't begin until early this week. And as of now, this is part of it.
Yeah, I agree. This time of year, you hear words like fit and alignment. It's very unique there. It's an owner who's a GM who has a post-game press conference, a radio hit every week. So it has to be a fit for that culture and that situation. In some ways, you feel like these two guys would fit together. And if it's ever going to happen, now would be the time.
I mean, this would be strictly a football. This isn't about selling tickers or back pages. Deion Sanders is a legitimate football coach who has proven himself at everything he's ever done.
You know him. I mean,
he was a teammate of mine for 2 years. Listen, people don't get confused with thinking Deion is like, you know, some new school type of guy. He's an old school principal guy. And what does the Dallas Cowboys need? Accountability. They've been living off of those, you know, those 3 titles that they had in the 90s. Well, who better to come in than a guy that was part of that building process to help them get one of them chips? He can come in, and he's one of the very few players that can get the ear of the audience, and he can call guys out. And what could you say? If you want to build brands, that's who you talk to. He can be a resource for everybody in that locker room and everybody within that building.
Well, I think it's 2 different jobs that head coaches in Dallas have to do. You have to be able to manage the locker room, and you have to be able to manage the owner. And I think that Deion Sanders can do that. it's not necessarily just about the X's and O's. Obviously, he knows and understands how to build a program when you look at Jackson State and also Colorado. But for Jerry Jones and Deion, it's having a voice that you value and respect. Someone needs to be able to have a conversation with Jerry, because you're never going to tell Jerry what to do, that Jerry, this could be best for our team, and have him value that. And now when you look at a CeeDee Lamb, go back to last year with Dan and we're talking about the tours. Who better to say, okay, here is how you handle what it is to be a Dallas Cowboy better than primetime Deion Sanders.
Right.
The thing about these two men, there's no room that Deion Sanders is in where he's not the brightest light. There's no room that Jerry Jones is in where he's not the brightest light. How do they figure out a way to compromise when it comes to who is the biggest voice in this locker room? And I think that's what's most important.
I think the other part of this, you just made me think of it. You know, Micah Parsons with all the podcasts. I mean, the Cowboys have far more podcasts than they have wins, you know, in this past year anyway. Like, I think that's the kind of thing, to your point, that Deion might be the one player or one of a very small handful of people who could walk into a room and say, guys, we're done with that.
No, he can't. Deion has a Tubi show right now. So, like, that's not going to happen. But the thing is, the thing that he won't do, though, he won't tell them not to have them, but he will tell them, do your job with excellence while having them. There's so many. This is a new age of player.
Probably can help him do it.
Yeah, it's a new age of player. So now Deion can go to them and say, okay, it's okay that we have these things. I understand these things, but Micah, what you can't say is this. What you can't do is this. You can't put us in this situation. I want you to shine, but shine in the right way.
That's the way I should have said it. Yeah. Don't rank the best quarterbacks in the NFL and leave our guy out.
Yeah.
Don't do that on your podcast. NBA double.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các bạn đã quay trở lại với kênh YouTube của mình. Video ngày hôm nay của mình sẽ là làm video gì đây? Nhiều quá, không biết làm video gì. Đây. Rất nhiều những sản phẩm mình đã chuẩn bị để promo để gửi tặng đến tất cả các bạn đây. Đấy. Sản phẩm chắc các bạn rất chi là quen thuộc. Những đồ dùng, con vật đây. Và đồ dùng đi theo mình là hộp xăm màu. Hộp xăm màu của mình đây. Đây là những cây màu đầy màu sắc này. Rất chi là tuyệt vời nha. Các bạn, nếu các bạn thấy hay, hãy cho mình like và đăng ký kênh nha.
Bây giờ chỉ tiêu của một các bạn.